everyone, welcome to the Mindful Magazine channel. Today I have with me Nicolas Haines, founder of the 5 Institute, creator of the Vitality Test, author, entrepreneur, and if I get it right, Chinese energetics, a teacher of Chinese energetics.
That's
Did
right.
I miss something?
No, I'm also, this is a title I gave myself, I'm also a kindness ambassador.
Oh, absolutely. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, leading with kindness. So if you could tell maybe a little bit more about yourself and how you got in touch with leading with kindness. I'm very curious to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a real honor to be part.
Yeah, thank you so much as well. I'm so happy you're here.
My background is actually Chinese medicine. I practiced Chinese medicine for 35 years. And within that time, I was working with lots of business leaders and looking at what was going on in their life. And so how that impacted their health and their relationships. And then we kind of moved into how that was impacting their businesses, and very much looking at who they were as individuals and how they were showing up and how that was impacting the way that they led or the way that they conducted themselves within their families or their relationships, or how they looked after themselves. So I got more and more interested and involved with looking at leaders, individuals, families, cultures, organizations, and particularly with this emphasis around how we treat ourselves and how we treat other people. And that dance between being kind and considerate to ourselves and to other people, and actually having a business that works. So it's a fascinating subject. So.
Oh, wow. Very interesting. And how do you apply this to companies? So leading with kindness, how would you bring that forward to businesses and organizations?
Well, you can do it in lots of different ways. You can say, okay, well, let's look at the culture of the organization. Let's look at the way that the way the business, or I do a lot of work within large hospitals, and I did some work with Cisco, big companies, and they have a culture that's there. And the culture that develops within the organization sometimes is very consciously created. We want to have this culture, and they have this idea that of a certain way to be, but people don't necessarily buy into that. So they may have the strap line and we're like this, but what's actually happening within the organization at the grass levels, and you must know this, you can have these high levels aspirations, what actually happens with the people's individual cultures. Yeah. So you can look at the culture of the organization. That's one thing. You can look at, and we have quite an interesting take on that. So shall I talk a bit more about cultures and kindness? And
yes, please, yeah. Please. Okay. I want to know. Yeah.
So there's an interesting thing that you can do with people. You say to people, okay, tell me the culture you would like to live in within your organization. And they often go, I would like to have a culture that's empowering or forgiving or liberating, or so they describe the culture that they would like to live in, a culture that allows people to make mistakes, allows people to stretch themselves, and they describe that culture.
So it's kind of, they create their own story, and from there you continue.
Yeah, so that's what they say that they would like to have. Okay, and you look at the organization, they're often trying to do something very similar. So that's an idea that they have. And then you ask the individual, okay, that's what you want to have from your external culture. Now tell me, do you treat yourself in that way?
That's a very good one. It's reflecting it back to the person.
Yeah.
Instead of going for the external factors.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very interesting because the answers you say, okay, well, you want the external culture to be kind and forgiving.
Yeah.
Are you kind and forgiving to yourself when you make a mistake?
I can imagine that.
And the answer to that is, yeah, And it's really interesting when you start looking at that because there's a reflection. Often what people want in their external culture is what they're actually lacking within their internal culture as to how they treat themselves. So you say, okay, well, you want that from the outside. Well, why don't we just look at why you don't do that for yourself?
Yeah.
Because if you did that for yourself, that has far more influence on how you feel about yourself, has far more influence on your productivity and your well-being, on your health, on your mindfulness. If you were in charge of that bit, and that's the bit that you're actually in charge of. And what happens in the external culture, that's what they're in charge. So
yeah,
my view is that external cultures don't matter that much if you have good internal culture.
Yeah.
So you can have them. A company can have the most atrocious external culture, but if your internal culture is really good, then we're fine. And a culture, an organization could have a fantastic external culture, but if your internal culture is bad, it makes no difference how good the company is. So we just start, 5 Institute, we start from what's happening inside you, and then start working out backwards to the external culture. And that's where you get rid of bullying and all the things that can go in large corporations, or and lots of that stuff is quite subtle. Or people not being fully empowered, or people worrying that they can't really stretch themselves without perhaps making a mistake, and then there being a consequence to that.
So it's kind of like mirroring. It's kind of like showing a mirror to each and every person, and then from there you move on to probably the next step. What would that be?
Well, then you've got various different ways that you can do this. So you could say, for example, I'm a pragmatist. I'm very practical. I look at how things work in practice. So let's pick something. Let's pick change. Okay. Look at what happens within change, because most organizations, companies, whatever, are going through a level of change all the time. So how do we look at what happens within change? So if you're going to lead with kindness or compassion or mindfulness or anything within that family, and we know that the benefits of doing that are enormous, aren't they, in terms of health, well-being, recruitment, retention, profit, productivity. There's all the research out there.
Almost everything.
Yeah, exactly. We know that it works. As a way to have a culture or organization or to lead. So say one looked at, as a leader, I'm in charge of some aspect of change within the company, whether it's my team or some bigger thing. So this is when we bring in the 5 energies. Vitality test. We might use this as a way to understand human nature and how to understand. So the Chinese 5 energies. Should I talk a little bit about those and use that?
Could you name them for me? The 5 energies, and maybe a small introduction for the ones who don't know.
Yeah, and we can do that. So the 5 energies, they're based on kind of ancient Chinese philosophy. It's around about 3,000-4,000 years old that they were first used, and they were used in ancient China, particularly in one of a dynasty that lasted nearly 1,000 years, and they were used within leadership, within government. They were used in education. They were used in warfare. They were used in politics. They were used in relationships. They were used in personal development. And they formed the basis of how people understand and interact with each other. And you could also understand how the economy was going through a cycle of these energies, and how teams do, and how politics do, and how etc. And it was used as the basis of this particular dynasty. And then over a 15-year period, all the information was pretty well lost. We know that it was used in politics and economics and stuff because we have the library records of all the books that talked about it.
Oh,
We
really?
just don't have the books. But we have the library records are saying this book on the five energies, etc. So we know that they were used. And where bits of writing remained was within medicine, which is where I got it from. So I kind of reverse engineered all of this out of the medical textbooks and say, okay, if we look at economics and how they fit within the energies, what is it like, and politics and leadership and world change and governments and stuff. So the way the five energies work is that they're a way to understand complexity and movement. So you have the first energy is water energy, and that's related to winter. And in winter, we fundamentally live with the consequences of our previous actions.
Okay.
That's what we're doing. If in winter, if we didn't plant our crops, in spring, we didn't look after them, and we didn't harvest them, we have consequences in winter, as in we're starving and we're we're not doing well. So people with a lot of water energy in their profile, they will all the time be thinking about, okay, what's the consequences of this? How is this going to play out in the long term? What can we learn from the past and bring forward to the future? And every energy runs with a big question. And water energy, those types of people, they'll always be asking, is this safe? Are we safe? So that's their big question. Water is also the only energy that really leaves its mark on the earth. If you think about Grand Canyons and glaciers, so people with a lot of water energy will say, what's the purpose of this? What's the destiny? What's a bigger meaning behind it? So
we can't live without water, basically.
No, we can't. It's about survival. Exactly, it's about survival. So their big thing is about safety, survival, purpose, meaning. That's that first energy. And let's flip that back and look at what happens within change. So when change is happening and someone in your team has a lot of water energy, their big concern is, okay, we've got this change happening. Is it sustainable? Can we do it? Do we have the resources? Am I safe? Are we safe? We're doing these changes. I'm not sure it's been thought through. What's the big picture? What's the purpose behind it? And if you don't address those issues for that person with that energy, they're not going to be involved with the change. And what will happen is they'll get really stressed. And if you try and force through the change, you start to lose this kindness, this consideration, this mindfulness, this compassion, and they just can't cope with change because they don't feel safe.
So it's basically the one who has the water. It's good for the inside of that person, but it would also be good then for the inside of the rest of the team. Why is this person responding this way? Exactly. And when you're going through change, you do need to consider, actually, have we got the resources for this? Is it sustainable? Is it safe to do this change? So they're people that we need to have on board when we're changing. And so when you're going through change, you have to make sure that they feel safe. You perhaps put them in charge of the resources and things. And then when you do that, they're fully on board, and change is good for them. Change is good for the organization. It's a kind, compassionate way to lead them. Okay. Should we look at the next energy? I'm ready. It's very fascinating to that there can be so much behind water. Because I've been looking a bit into astrology, and they have also the water and earth, and but relating this to business environments, it's so interesting, and it has its own meaning. And I really feel that it is a really good way to explore who you are and also who your colleagues are, actually. And it's this dance between understanding your energy. So if I have lots of water energy, then when I come to changing within an organization or team, I'm going to be addressing all of that stuff. Which is great for all the other people on my team. But what about the people that don't have water energy? Is it going to work for them?
So so let's look, and if anyone wants to find out what their energy type is, that's why we have the vitality test. That's what it's doing, is it's measuring this balance of these 5 energies.
I actually did it myself.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I did do it, yeah.
I should have looked, and so we have so many people, we have thousands of people taking it. I should have seen. What was your profile?
I can spill it because my main types were actually water.
Okay.
And fire.
Ah, brilliant. Oh, wonderful combination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, it's a bit of two opposites, it seems, but yeah.
Yeah, and we can explore that in terms of leadership and stuff. But so let's look at the next energy, shall we?
Yes, please.
So the next energy is wood energy, and that's related to spring. And in spring, we have, it's new, it's fresh, it's the beginning, it's innovation, it's about creativity. So those wood energy types, they're innovative, they're creative, they're imaginative, whatever. Their big question is about freedom. They have to have freedom. That's what they strive for. So that creativity, that imagination, that freedom, that playing thing. So if you are bringing some change into your organization and you don't give that someone with a lot of wood energy, if you don't give them the freedom and you force it in a certain way, you're going to have resistance. And they are wood energy types are very stubborn. When they get really fixed in a way of thinking, they're very hard to shift. But when you get them in a flowing and imaginative state, they come up with all sorts of ideas. So when you've got change going on in an organization with your wood energy types, what you want to do is you want to give them the freedom to come up with ideas and solutions to make that change better.
Oh, wow. It sounds like the freelancers and artistic people.
Yeah. And so, but say if you have a lot of wood energy yourself, and you say, oh, we're going to do this change, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and then we can do this, and we've got this idea, and the water energy types can go, well, we haven't got the resources to do all of that, and they're going to be freaking out. They're going to have a really bad time. Well, what's the purpose? We haven't got the resources. It doesn't sound safe. So again, it's getting that balance right. But if a wood energy type, if you say, okay, it's got to be done this way within this thing, and you have to do it,
they're gonna be like, no.
Because the other part of wood energy is they're rebels. They're rebellious.
Okay.
Yeah, they're disruptive. They're rebellious, and that's what they do. So lots of innovative, rebellious thinking is what changes. So lots of innovation is very rebellious. So you want their rebellion involved with the change to make the change, because they love movement and new things. Unless they're forced into it, and then they will be resistant to it. So if you're not playing this right, you could have the water energy types are saying, I can't do this, I'm too scared, we haven't got the resources. The wood energy types saying, I'm sorry, this is ridiculous, no one can tell me what to do, I'm going to leave. Or you could have these resource people and these innovative people fully on board. So should we look at the next energy?
Yes.
So then we come to this.
Oh, fascinating. I just love it. Yeah.
So we then come to the fire energy types, which is your other energy, and that's related to summer. So it's hot, it's passionate, and fire by its nature is expansive. It wants to get bigger, and we could do, and it's exciting, and it's about enthusiasm and communication and talking, and they're the kind of, they will sell anything to anybody. And they, you know what I mean? They go, oh, we could do this. And so you really want to have those fire types on board with the change, because they will make it enthusiastic. They'll be passionate about it. And we can do this, and we can do this. And change, if you make change exciting and passionate, and you get those fire types involved, it's really fun to do it. The big question, though, for fire types is, am I loved? Am I loved, and am I appreciated for who I am?
Yes.
So if any of the change if you're not mindful of showing those fire types that they're appreciated for who they are and what they do and they're valued, we say, well, that's all, the past is rubbish. We're not going to do any of that sort of stuff. We're just going to do this change in the future. And the fire types are saying, oh, so everything I was before isn't valued, hasn't been appreciated, hasn't been loved because we've got all this new stuff. They're going to feel hurt. They're going to withdraw. And you're not going to get that fiery, passionate communication. What you're going to do is get gossiping and bitching.
Yeah.
And you're going to get
the light is out.
The light is out, and what they'll start to do is, instead of enrolling people towards the change, they'll enroll people towards the resistance to the change.
Yes.
So you'll have a whole lot of people that are kind of going, well, I don't think we should be doing this. It sounds very thing. And the water energy types say, well, yes, I don't think it's been well thought out. I can't see the purpose, and we definitely don't have the resources. And the wood energy side, yeah, yes, I agree with you. It's all being forced upon us, and we've not been given any choice in this. And the fire energy types fire them all up, and suddenly you've got a revolution on your hands.
Yes. So leadership isn't as easy, actually, would it seem, because you have to deal with so many different people with different thoughts, and they all want to be appreciated in a way, in their own way.
Yeah, or they want to have their big question met. So their big question, am I safe? Am I free? Am I appreciated? But it doesn't take long to appreciate someone.
Yes.
It's actually quite quick, but and you can do all the appreciation you want of a wood and a fire energy, a wood type and a water type, and they'll go, oh, thanks very much. It's like you can give all the freedom you want to a water energy type, and they won't appreciate it. You give freedom to someone with a lot of wood energy, and they'll go, oh, thank you, and I can do this. And so
it's actually just listening to what people want and what they appreciate.
Yeah, exactly. So those fire energy types, you've got them on board with the change, and they're enthusiastic, whatever. Then with earth energy, that's related to late summer. And in late summer, everything starts to slow down, and it's a slower energy. And earth energy types, their big thing is about understanding. That's their big question is, do I understand and am I understood? So with them, if you're a leader and you're going through change, they want to know what's going to go on. They want to know, well, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it, and what am I meant to do? And this is all very stressful. I don't know what it is that I meant. I don't really understand what's happening. So they get really stressed. And so you just got to make sure, okay, with those types, we just got to explain, okay, in week 1, we're going to be doing this. You're going to have to do this. We're going to do this. So you just kind of explain, and so they understand what's actually going on. And you might get their fire energy type to talk about it to them.
Yeah, make them communicate with each other as well.
Yeah. And say, okay, we're going to find, so you get different energy types to have an involvement with it. And because if earth energy types don't understand, they get very bogged down in the detail, and they start, every time you try and do this something, they say, well, no, I don't understand. So where are we meant to be when? I don't understand. What are we meant to do here? And I don't think, and how would I do this? And the leader's going, oh, for God's sake, just get on with it. We don't do this. So they get really stressed. But whereas if you just say, okay, this is a timetable, this is what we're going to do when, your role is this, you're going to do this, we're going to have a meeting once a week, and we're going to all talk about what we all need to do. They go, good.
It's almost like a play.
Yeah.
And everyone gets a role, and where they're most comfortable with. Yeah.
And they all get to play their part.
Yeah.
Then you have metal energy types, and metal energy is related to autumn, fall. So that's when things end, that's when things disconnect, and things suddenly, they're no longer there, they finish, they end. So metal energy types, their big question is always, what's missing, what isn't there, what's incomplete, what's inefficient. So in ancient China, they always put metal energy types in charge of the harvest because they're very efficient. They get things done. They're completer finishers. They're really good at assessing the value in things. So with a metal energy type, you've got to have change that's actually non-wasteful.
Yeah.
It's got to be efficient. It's got to have a value to it. And if they can see that the change is valuable and it's efficient and things haven't been missed out, they're totally on board with the change.
They're more of the thinkers.
Analytical thinkers, and they'll measure things. But if they think, you know what, this change is pointless. It's inefficient. It's pointless. It's just wasting money and resources. I can't see the point in it. It's just change for change's sake. They'll say, I'm just not interested in it. And what metal energy types do is they detach. They just literally, they will withdraw.
Yeah.
Not engage. I'm not doing this. I'm going to carry on using my old spreadsheet in the same way as I do. The new system is inefficient. It doesn't work properly. It's too slow. I'm not doing it. I'm just going to stay with my old system. And you won't know that they haven't changed because they're quiet and in their background. And suddenly you find out 6 months later that they've been continuing using their old system.
Yes.
And like a silent resistance.
So they really need to be taken in considerate. Like they have to have, someone needs to pull them out and ask them how do you feel about it.
Yeah, or ask them the very thing that you need to do is there a more efficient way to do this change?
Okay. And because they're analytical, so they can come up with new solutions.
Yeah. And it might be, you might pair them with another energy type. So you might say, okay, let's have these metal energy types and water energy types. Let's look at the resources we've got, the measurements, and let's see how much resources we've got to do this.
Yes.
And then you might say to the wood energy type, can you think of another way that we could do this that would be a more creative way to do it with the resources? And the fire energy type saying, okay, loving what you're doing, can we just get you to do this? And so you get each energy type is involved with the change. And if you're going to be kind to someone, that's the way to do it, is to meet that core need.
Yes.
And you get change to happen, and you get everybody's needs is being met, and you as a leader get to have the sort of change. You get to have change happen, and you're not pulling your hair out saying, oh, for God's sake, just do what I say.
Yes.
Or whatever.
And have the team working with you instead of against you.
Yes, exactly. And it could be that, say, if you have a lot of water energy, so you're concerned about resources and being able to do things and stamina, and can we carry this through?
Yes.
There is a joke that's with these energies, a kind of a joke to it. It could be that if you have a lot of water energy type and you're concerned about resources, that you will actually work through the night and not watch your own reserves and resources because you're trying to get the big mission done. You're trying to keep everybody safe. You're going to try and keep it within budget, within everything. And what you do is you work through the night and weaken your own resources. Or the wood energy type, which they have this thing about freedom, is they try and do everything themselves to control everything, to make sure everything is done. So these wood energy leaders try and get everything done. And the big cosmic joke is they have no freedom because they're trying to do everything themselves.
It's so interesting. And I recognize it a little bit in myself. I have water and fire.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I'm super passionate, and I have things that if I like something, I go full speed.
Yeah.
But then I have in my mind, do you have enough money to do this?
Yeah.
Am I safe? It's very true. I recognize this within me as well. And It's always the two things. One thing is full speed ahead, and the other one is like, am I sure? Is this really the right way?
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I can see already that it's really reflecting on me as well.
And that's why one of the reasons I was so excited about doing this interview for the Mindful Magazine is this whole concept of, to be truly mindful of something, then we need to understand ourselves like never before. Yeah. We need to understand ourselves at a depth that is, and understand other people at a depth. And that's, so a lot of our work is trying to find very simple ways to understand other people.
Yes.
Because people are complicated, aren't they?
Yes. I think everyone's complicated.
But it's really interesting when you break it down into these energy types, what would seem to be quite complicated.
Yes.
Yourself with this enthusiasm and this passion, and at the same time, am I safe and do I have resources? As soon as you see the vitality test, you say, okay, both those things can exist at the same time. They're both me.
Yes. Yeah, it's true. And do you think that kindness, does it have boundaries when you apply that in companies?
Yes, very much so. You kind of, what you have to do is you have to kind of look at the different layers that's going on. So you might have, okay, well, what's the impact of these actions based on kindness to the planet? So what's our footprint? What are we going to leave at a big thing to the planet? You might say, okay, is this kind to the company? Because a company needs to be sustainable and have profit and have longevity, and depending upon what your company. And then you're looking at, okay, is this actually kind to the individuals that work within those companies? And some of the decisions you have to make to get those three layers, there's sometimes some really quite tough decisions. Actually, in order to be good for the planet, we've actually got to do this for the human beings.
Yes.
In order to be sustainable for the business, we've got to go this for the human beings. Yes. Or it could be, in order to do this for the human beings, we have to drop some of the profit within the company, and to be good for the planet, we have to drop some of the profit for the company. So how do we get, so sometimes it's very tough decisions. You've got to be very pragmatic, mindful, and make hard decisions. And it isn't about being soft. It isn't about being, you've got to have some boundaries and some control, but it's having that ability to be mindful beyond, in all these different layers. And the 5 energies are a really good way to understand the planet, our businesses, the individuals, the economic place that you're sitting in. They're just a great way.
Probably, and also it's a way for people to be heard, because it's always better to be heard than not to be heard at all.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And you could, for example, sometimes I was doing some work with a particular company, and we were looking at that they had this particular strategy, and this was a number of years ago, and I said, the problem with that is we're about to enter a water energy phase of the economy, basically an economic winter, where it's actually about resources and survival, and you're doing a fire expansion action, which is fine if the economy is expanding, but it doesn't work when the economy is contracting, and it's kind of obvious when you look at it, but they were so enthusiastic about this new thing, and they were really excited, and we can do this and we can do this. And I said, yeah, but that's within the context of an expanding economy, and the economy is going to contract shortly.
Yeah, so actually you can also apply the energies to the economy itself.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I co-founded a very large acupuncture college. So in 2007, we were being offered lots of money to buy a big building. Mm-hmm. And but you could already see the economy was actually in the metal energy phase. It was about to contract and go into this big recession. So we didn't move buildings. We we actually cut down some costs. We shrunk things down. So when the big recession happened,
yes,
whereas one of the biggest acupuncture colleges in the country that had been going through from the 60s, they went bust.
oh wow,
They went bust because they expanded at the very time when you should have been contracting. And one of the big London colleges, they did the same thing. And we were wealthy enough to educate all their students for free.
oh wow.
We educated their students for free because they lost all that.
Small, yeah.
Yeah, well, we were big. We were one of the biggest colleges, but we did winter activity at the winter time, which is about efficiency and resources. And we stuck together, and we did a lot of team building and a lot of we huddled together, as you need to do in the winter.
Oh, that's great. So it's also applied to kind of forecasts
Yes.
for companies.
Yeah. You can look and see what's going to happen and perhaps what you should be doing and the industry that you're in. And that way you get to build the company in a certain way that does have resources, that does have the reserves to do the level of internal culture that you need to attract the best talent.
Oh, wow.
So it's a really interesting matrix that you get this right, which is...
And I'm very happy to share this as well. But I want to ask you one more question.
Yes.
Could you name in maybe one sentence, just to have a summary, what is leading with kindness for you?
Leading for kindness with me. It's being equally kind to yourself, to your business, and to the planet in equal measure. And it's a dance. It's how to get that balance. And we at the Five Institute, we talk about your kind set. So it's like your mindset, but it's actually to do with your kind set. So it's developing that kind set to be equally kind to yourself, to others, and the planet, business altogether. It's that balance. It's balance. That's all it is.
Balance. Yeah. It's not too much focus, but you have to take the company into consideration, the people, maybe sustainability, how to be. I mean, we're going towards a kind of a newer world.
Yeah.
So we have to think about how to present yourself the best and make your happy a nice environment.
Yeah.
Make your company a nice environment. Yeah.
Yeah. But you can't do that unless you can fundamentally understand human nature at the level you need to understand it.
Exactly.
And once you can do that, then you can create, and you understand the energy of the people, the energy of the business, then you can create that thing. If you don't have that understanding, you're guessing.
Yes.
You're guessing what each individual needs or trying to do it for everybody when you don't need to.
So you start at the core, and from the core you expand. Exactly.
In change, I don't need to feel safe. I need to feel free. So don't waste your energy trying to make me feel safe. Just concentrate on making me feel free, and you'll get my best ideas.
That's so great. Okay, so thank you very much I'm really happy to have this interview with you. And for everyone who's watching, take a look at the 5institute.com for the vitality test. I did it myself, and I thought it was very helpful. And even already the questions made me realize a lot about myself. So I sincerely recommend that to everyone. And thank you so much, Nicolas, for your time.
Oh, my pleasure, Michelle. My pleasure.
So inspirational. And maybe until soon.
Yes, sounds good. Okay. Bye for now.